You think you know the story of King Tut, the gold mask, the curse, but the real story, the story of how they even found him, it's almost more incredible. We're going to dive into Howard Carter's own words to tell the tale of this near-impossible hunt for a pharaoh who was basically lost to time.
But before we even get to the discovery, our story starts here, with this dedication from Howard Carter. It's a bit of a ghost at the feast, right? A tragic foreshadowing that the greatest moment of triumph was also intertwined with incredible loss.
So to really get this whole story, you have to understand the man who paid for it all. The man who gambled a fortune on this long-shot dream. And we're not just talking about money, we're talking about a price that was, well, much, much higher.
I mean, his own sister described his life like this. It perfectly captures the two sides of this epic tale, doesn't it? The unbelievable discovery of a real-life Aladdin's cave, and then this dark twist of fate, this Greek tragedy. It's a story that just grabs you and doesn't let go.
So let's talk about Lord Carnarvon, or Porchy, as his friends called him. Long before he was digging around in Egypt, he was a man in constant motion, pursuing pretty much everything the world had to offer.
Right, so he was born into this incredible life of privilege. I mean, Highclere Castle, yeah, that Highclere Castle from Downton Abbey. But he wasn't content to just sit around. He sailed the globe, became fascinated with history, and then he got into cars. He was one of the very first people to drive, and by all accounts, let's just say he was fast and maybe a little reckless.
And that recklessness, well, it caught up with him. In 1901, a massive car crash in Germany basically shattered his health for the rest of his life. To escape the damp English winters, which were just agony for him now, his doctors told him to go to Egypt. And it's there, in the dry desert air, that he finds a brand new obsession.
So this new passion, this digging, as he called it, takes over. But he's an amateur, right? So he's told, look, if you're serious about this, you need the best. You need to hire a guy named Howard Carter. And that right there, that's the beginning of one of the most famous partnerships in history.
Okay, so now we have our team, the wealthy patron and the dogged archaeologist. But what were they actually up against? Well, they weren't just looking for a needle in a haystack. They were looking for a needle in a haystack that people have been tearing apart and looting for 3,000 years.
And this is the haystack, the Valley of the Tombs of the Kings. It's this remote, sun-blasted, rocky canyon that was meant to be the secret final resting place for the great pharaohs of Egypt's new kingdom, basically their golden age. It was designed for secrecy, designed for eternity.
But see, that was the problem. The pharaohs stopped building pyramids because they were just giant "rob me" signs on the landscape. So they thought, okay, let's hide the tombs in these cliffs. The thing is, secrecy only works if nobody knows where the treasure is, and everybody knew. The temptation was just too much.
And listen to this. This is from an actual confession of a captured tomb robber written down thousands of years ago. There's no shame, no remorse. It's just a business transaction. We took the gold and we split it 8 ways. It shows you exactly what Carter was up against. This was an ancient, organized industry.
For thousands of years, this was just the reality. It was a constant cat-and-mouse game. The priests in charge of the valley would literally shuffle the royal mummies from one tomb to another, trying to stay one step ahead of the thieves. So in this place, finding any tomb was a big deal. Finding one that hadn't been picked clean? That was considered impossible. A total miracle.
So why even try? Why did Carter and Carnarvon think they could find the one thing everyone else had missed? Well, it's because they weren't just looking for any tomb. They were on the hunt for a very specific pharaoh, a king who had practically vanished from the history books.
And that king was Tutankhamun. He's this young boy who becomes pharaoh right after this period of massive upheaval. His father-in-law, a guy named Akhenaten, had turned the entire country upside down by trashing all the old gods and saying, nope, there's only one god now. Tutankhamun's main job was basically to fix all that and bring back the old traditions. So they knew a few things about him. Died young, moved the capital back to Thebes, but here's the kicker. In all those detailed records of tomb robberies, all those lists of mummies being moved for safety, his name is nowhere. It's like he just disappeared. And for Howard Carter, that massive glaring omission wasn't a dead end, it was the most important clue of all.
Okay, so let's fast forward to 1922. They've been digging for years with almost nothing to show for it. Lord Carnarvon is getting tired of writing checks. He's pretty much ready to call it quits. This season, this dig, it was their last shot, the absolute final chance.
And you have to understand, the world's leading expert on the valley, an American named Theodore Davis, had already packed up his tools years earlier. He literally said, there are no more tombs to be found here. He declared the valley exhausted. But Carter just refused to believe it. He was convinced everyone had missed something.
And what was that something? Well, it was a few scattered little objects that Davis himself had found and basically thrown away. A small cup, some bits of gold foil, a few pottery jars, all of them with the name Tutankhamun on them. To Davis, it was just trash from a long-ago robbed tomb, but to Carter, it was a map.
This is where Carter's genius really shines. He looked at that trash and had a totally different idea. He argued this wasn't stuff stolen from the tomb. This was stuff from the funeral, the ritual items and leftovers from the banquet that were buried in a pit after the tomb was sealed. It was a brilliant theory, and it was a massive gamble.
And that's what it all came down to. One last season, one last patch of ground to clear, based on a hunch that everyone else thought was crazy. With hope running out, they started digging right under the foundations of some ancient workmen's huts, convinced that somewhere beneath the rubble an answer was waiting. The question was, what would that answer be?